So this is for Java 2. Again, the main purpose of the constructor is to initialize all the instance variables. So we have to go find out what they are. So down here at the bottom we have 3 instance variables that we're going to need to set. So we'll do that here. We'll say numDice. And we're just going to, since they didn't pass in numDice as one of the parameters, we're just going to set that to 0. NumSides is equal to 0. So if you're in Java 2, you should be following right along as I type this in. Okay? And mobile app programming as well. And then finally, this is the hard part. We have to create an array where we're going to store each individual die. So you would say, what do we call our die array? We call it a roll array. So say roll array. Yeah, so I'm striking out on this one. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do here. So let me think about that. I don't quite have a clear understanding yet. But we'll be able to do it down here. So here's the next one where we're creating the number of dice and the number of sides. So we say numDice. Well, notice that we have numDice here, and then we have numDice again. See, that doesn't work because we're just assigning it to this thing. What we're trying to say is this numDice that's coming into the constructor, we want to set it to the internal numDice that's down here, that one. So the way to specify that then is to say this. Okay? And then it understands what we're trying to do. This dot numSides equals numSides. So this is the one in the class. This one is the one that's coming in as a parameter. Yeah, that's fine. And then the last thing, this dot roll array and this is where I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember how to allocate this. Then you would say numSides or numDice. Yeah, I actually like that. And so what we're saying here is we want to have a die array that has a certain number of dice in it. You pass in numDice, and say you have 5 as the number. It will create 5 dice, or 5 individual dice, but they'll be numbered from 0 to 4, not 1 to 5. Just because we have an array doesn't mean that we've initialized the array. We actually haven't done that yet. We've created the array, it has the right size, but none of the slots are filled in with the different parts of the dice we want. So here we have to do a loop. Now, we talked about loop at the end. Yeah. Okay, so now we have to initialize each individual die in the array. So the way you do that is you have to create a for loop. So I'm going to create a variable I, just an index. Most programmers use I just to count through stuff. And then we say for I equals 0, I less than num dice, right? And then we use our increment operator. Make sure to separate these with semicolons. So you initialize the variable I to 0. Each time you go through the loop at the top, you're going to check to make sure that I is less than num dice. And then at the bottom of the loop, you're going to add 1 to I. So this is the hard part. You say roll array sub I, which is weird, equals new die. And the die needs to know how many sides there are, so you say numSides. So we're calling the constructor on the single die, and we're assigning that reference to the first element in the roll array. So what does this class do? It says creates a set of dice given the parameters passed in. First parameter is the number of dice, the next parameter is num size. We use num dice to construct the size of our roll array, and then we loop through our roll array quickly and create each individual die that's in that set of dice. So this doesn't make a lot of sense. So when you have code like that, it's best to put a few comments in. Create an array to hold all the dice. Okay? And this is just for me, the programmer, going, okay, well, why did I do this? What am I trying to do here? If you look at this, you go, I don't know what that means. You come back 2 years later and you have to fix it, and you go, I don't remember why I did this. So when you put comments in code, you want to answer the question why, not what. Okay? I can see what it's doing. I'm a programmer. But what I need to know is, why did I do it this way? Why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing this because I need to create an array to hold all the dice. Okay? And then here I say loop through the array, creating each individual die. Okay? And again, these are comments. The compiler doesn't care what you write here. They don't get compiled. There's no syntax errors. You're just writing in whatever language what you think should happen here. So when I get to the bottom of here, I is now equal to 1 because I've added 1 to it. And so roll away some 1 will be the next die. And now we have this set up. So if I go back up here, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with roll array. And since this is an empty class, we're going to just leave roll away set equal to null. So let's just make that explicit. Because we don't have any dice, we don't have any sides, we really don't need the array. But we should say something. So we're going to set it equal to null. And what null means is here you have a reference to an array, but it's not pointing to anything. So we use the keyword null for that. Okay, so we're going to do these 4 functions here. How's everybody doing Java2 wise and mobile app wise? Does everyone have this compiling, or at least so it doesn't have any errors in it yet? Anyone have problems? No, not yet? Okay, so I'm going to walk you through these other ones. I'm recording this as well, so if you want to listen to this later, maybe on Tuesday you can do that. So now we actually need to roll the dice. Let's do the easy ones first, and then we'll do the hard ones. Okay, so let's do get die value. They're going to pass in which die they want. Do we want the first die, the second die, the third die? Things like that. Now remember, programmers start counting at 0. So the first die is it's got the number 0 on it. So what we do then is we say each die has a value. So we would say this, return. So I get rid of my temp thing, so I know that I'm filling this in now. So instead of returning 0, I return roll array. Which one do I want to grab? I want to get the one they passed in, the die num. So use the die num to get to the right slot in the roll array and say get value. Okay. And it will take that single die in the array and figure out what value it currently has. And that whole thing gets returned as the int that comes back from get die value. So if I add my Java doc here, Yeah, it just returns the value. So you roll the die, say a single die, or you roll 5 dice, and you look at one of them and say, what's the value of that one? Oh, it's a 4. Okay, that's what this does. So it obtains the value of a single die in the array. Okay. So that's nice. When we do the Java doc, that'll look pretty. The next one, say we want to roll a single die in the set of dice. So let's do the Java doc first so we know what we're doing. Okay. So all I'm doing is just going through and creating the Java doc for this. So now we actually have to do the work. What do we want to return? And we would say roll array. And the index would be the die number. Instead of getting the value, we want to actually roll it. See there, it has a roll method there on the die. That's coming from the die class. So we just say roll. What that does is it goes out and get that individual die and re-roll it so you get a new value. So that's pretty slick. It's probably overkill, but now it comes time to do the roll method. And remember, the roll method is going to roll all the dice. Say you're trying to roll everything. Okay. So I get rid of my temp comment. And to do this, we have to do something like this. We have to loop through the array, because we're going to have to re-roll each dice one at a time. So I'm going to copy this from the constructor, and we're going to use that structure down here. So I'm copying the loop, basically, this part. So copy that. And we're going to paste it down here. Yeah, so we say int I, and then for I equals 1, this is all the same. NumDice is a private instance variable, but we're inside the class, so we can just call it directly. We don't have to say get NumDice. And here, instead of, we just say rolls array sub I dot. Well, we could do this. I'm trying to think what would be better. Yeah, why don't we do this? We'll use our roll die method. Roll die. And we just pass an I. So this is the first example of where we have one method in a class call another method in a class. This rolls a single die, right? Roll die, it says. Rolls a single die in the set of dice. Here we want to roll all of them. And so we just call roll die on that single one. And we go from 0 to 1 less than the number of dice, which would be 4. Okay. And that looks nice. Problem is the return value we haven't really sorted out yet. We're going to do that in a second. Rolls the dice, returns the sum of all the dice. We're not keeping track of the sum of the dice as we do this. So we're going to add one more variable up here called sum. So we have an integer I, that's our little index or our counter. But we have another one called sum. And we're going to start out sum as being 0. There's a roll method inside the die class, and there's also a roll method inside the dice class. So don't get them confused. One is for rolling a single die, the other one's for rolling all the dice in the set. But I'll have to come over and look at your code to see that. Okay? So returning 0 is not what we want. We want to return the sum of all the dice. So what we say here is we say sum equals sum plus roll die. What's nice about roll die, if you go and look at it in the die class, you'll note that the roll method returns what it rolled. See that it returns an int, and it returns that value once we roll it. This is the actual rolling part. So in the dice class, we can take that and we can add it to the sum and then assign that back to the sum. So if the sum was 0, it's going to be whatever we rolled. The second time through, it's going to keep adding to the sum every time we go through the loop. So for each roll, it's going to get that value and add it to sum. And at the end, instead of returning 0, we just return sum. Now, you can simplify this equation a little bit. How might you simplify it, you think? Or make it a little bit more terse, is the word. What you could do is you could say, this is called a compound assignment operator. You say plus equals. And what that means is take the sum, add roll dice to it, and sort back into sum. But for beginners, that's not always clear. So this doesn't hurt you. But if you get to be a professional programmer, you tend to want to do it the other way. Because professional programmers know what that means. Beginners, that's kind of complicated, so we'll just leave it like this. Okay? Let's see. So this class is almost complete. We still need to do add them up. That's this one. And then we finished off the constructors up here. Yeah, those are all done. So let's do add them up. First I start with my Java2 comments. Adds. Okay, so here we want to add them up, but we don't want to re-roll it. We already know that roll is going to give us the sum, right? But say after we roll it and we still want to get the sum, how we're going to do that without re-rolling it? So we're going to basically do this again. But this time we're not going to re-roll it. So I would grab the insides of the roll method, take that, and paste it in here. You only have to make one minor change. Instead of re-rolling it, we're going to go get the die value instead. So we'll say here, get die value. That's the only change. Our method for getting the die value is right here. We might as well call it since we have it right there in the class, in the same class. So we do that. So if you look down here on the left of the window, you can see we have two constructors. We have add 'em up. We have some get methods. We have some roll methods, some set methods. We have 3 instance variables. And our dice class is complete. So cool. We have this set of dice, and we also have a single die as well. So now in our simulator, we can go in and try this dice thing out. So we're going to create a set of dice. We pass in the number of dice, say 5. Number of sides is 6. Seems to like that. So which constructor are we using? In the dice class, we're calling this constructor. We pass in the number of dice and the number of sides. And then we say this, system.out.println For a single die roll, we did that. We created a 6-sided die and we rolled it, and we got a number between 1 and 6. But here we're saying we're going to create a whole set of dice. Now we have 5 6-sided dice, and we want to print out the sum of the 5 dice. And again, all we're doing is taking our dice and we're rolling it. And that will roll each individual die. So all 5 dice will be rolled, and it will return back to you the sum of all the dice. Now the question you have to ask here is, what do we expect coming back? What's the lowest number you can get with 5 dice? A lot of people think, well, these would be numbers between 1 and 30, right? 5 times 6 is 30. So I'm going to get numbers between 1 and 30. But that's not true. The lowest number you can roll with 5 dice is what? 5. If you got a 1 on every single die, that would be 5. What's the highest number you can roll?
That's 30.
30, right. So it's not from 1 to 30, it's 5 to 30. So let's run the program and see what we get as output. Okay, we got 10. That seems right. 12, 19, 22, 25, 20, 9, 17. So it looks like it's working. We're getting numbers between 5 and 30. So I'll just keep doing this for a while. See if there's any bugs. It's really hard to roll a 30. The 30 would be a Yahtzee. All 6s, you might be here a while. Okay? So now we have a set of dice we can roll. Woo. We can use this now for any dice game that you can think of. Nice general purpose dice class.